So I see a question here. I'm just going to take some questions on the fly. I see a good question. If we terminate a salaried and exempt employee because of the restaurant decrease in business due to takeout only restrictions, do we have to pay this exempt employee the entire week's work of pay? We're terminating them today versus Friday. So good questions. Get into some of an overview of pay and benefits during closures. I'll jump into that, cover some broad topics here, and then we can jump into some specific questions too. But generally for exempt employees, if they do any work during the week, you have to pay them for the entire week. Now, if you're actually terminating the employee, you don't have to pay them for any days after the termination, but we've seen a lot of confusion out there with California employers about if it's going to be a termination or the employees are just not coming into work for a couple of weeks, for example, to abide with the Los Angeles closure, the mandate that restaurants close until March 31st. So a lot of restaurants are just closing their doors until March 31st, telling their employees, you still got a job, we just can't be open given the city mandate, and you're going to come back once we're able to reopen. And in that case, if you've got an exempt employee, they've worked during the work week, you have to pay them for that entire work week. Now, the next work week, if they don't do any work, you can tell them, stop all work, don't log in on your email, don't call any employees or anything like that. And if they don't do any work, you don't have to pay them for that work week. And then until they start back up. Now, if you are going through an actual termination, that does stop this obligation to keep paying exempt employees for that entire work week. But keep in mind, if you are actually going through a termination, there's a lot of obligations in final pay that you have to offer the employee at the time of termination. All of their pay has to be made available to them that day. In addition to any accrued and unused vacation time, it needs to be paid out. And there's some also notices that need to be given to the employee as well if you're going through an actual termination. In regards to hourly employees, we're getting the question a lot too. What kind of pay requirements are there for hourly employees if we're shut down temporarily? So hourly employees, if they're at-will employees, there is no obligation to keep paying them if they're not working. There is no pay obligation in that regard, but there are paid sick leave obligations. California have got the paid sick leave requirements on a statewide basis, and we have a lot of local cities that have the paid sick leave requirements too. And this leave for the coronavirus may trigger the paid sick leave requirement, even if it's just a closure because of these local orders coming out from the state governments. And for example, the Department of Industrial Relations, its website published some FAQs this week about paid sick leave under state law, and it did say the DIR, which is basically the labor commissioner, is saying that preventative care may include preventative care for paid sick leave purposes. Employers may have to pay this out when there's a self-quarantine as a result of potential exposure to COVID-19, or if quarantine is recommended by civil authorities. The DIR also said, in addition, there may be other situations where an employee may exercise their right to paid sick leave, or an employer may allow paid sick leave for preventive care. And they list, for example, where one's been exposed to COVID-19 or the worker has traveled to a high-risk area. So employers need to keep that in mind going forward.